So you imagine like 8 big crew dudes come through your front door at 5 a.m. and they're hacked off. They say there's no time like your first time. And really, there's no car like your first car. And my first car was a 1968 Volkswagen Bug. And I had great ambitions. When I was 12, my parents gave me a collector car book, which I have to this day. And I started getting fascinated with cars at that point. I went through the whole thing and I picked out different cars I thought were cool. And I marked all the ones I wanted to own someday. And I've actually moved through the book pretty well, or at least try to drive all the cars that I thought were cool. So I grew up for the first few years looking at cars, loving cars. And in California, you can drive on a permit at 15 and a half. So my thought was, I need a car by the time I'm 15 and a half. And I was working at a bike shop. At that bike shop, my good friend, Robert Peterson, worked, and he was a freestyle BMX guy. And I'd only moved to California maybe a year and a half earlier. And I started doing freestyle BMX as well because he was like my hero. So I'm like 15, he's maybe 18 or 19. He gets sponsored by a company called Skyway and becomes a legitimate professional freestyler. And he starts getting a salary to ride bikes, which I thought was cool. The benefit of that was he bought a brand new Toyota MR2 as a way of celebrating. And he had always driven around this old Bug. And on it were the coolest stickers. And this is 80s California, right? So stickers all over your car were really, really cool. And that's actually come back with my Matt's car and his drift car covered in stickers again. So it had freestyling across the window. He had stickers because he traveled all over the world doing freestyle shows. So he had stickers from Germany, and I thought those stickers were worth $500 themselves. I'm like, and when I was pitching this to my dad, I'm like, those stickers are worth a fortune. My dad looked obviously a bit incredulous about that one. But my parents had made a deal that they would pay for half of our first car if we worked for the other half. And I had put together enough money and we came to a price of $500. And in retrospect, not the greatest decision on my part since I was being met halfway, but I couldn't wait to get a car. My brother and sister did much better than I did. They waited a while. My sister actually waited a few years so that my parents were paying half a payment on a Mazda B2000 pickup truck. So I think she got better value than I did. But I had to have a car. I was a young car guy. So I buy this 68 Bug. It's black. I go to the local Bug store because back then there were literally stores in California that just sold Volkswagen parts. And I get the T-bumpers for it. I take the bumpers off, want to make it a little more lightweight. And they had a style called Cow Bug back then. And I was like, that's what I'm going to do. I took all the chrome off the windows and put the T-bumpers, and I had Stinger exhaust on it. And I thought it was so cool driving it to high school. And because I drove it 15 and a half, 16 years old, man, I was on the road in that thing. And to be a teenager with their own car back then meant a lot. I mean, a lot of teenagers now don't even care, or they just get an Uber. But to me, this was freedom. And what we do, I started really getting into freestyle BMX, eventually got sponsored myself. And like we'd get 4 guys in this Bug, we get a bike rack on the back and stack like 4 BMX bikes on the back and head up to Golden Gate Park in San Francisco where they'd have these huge freestyle jams on Sundays. And that's where I learned for the first time how to drive a stick up a hill, was in San Francisco. I didn't want to appear uncool to my friends. They had no idea I'd never been on a hill before. We drove up there and I remember going up 19th Avenue, just terrified that I'm going to burn the clutch out. I didn't know we were going to roll backwards into a car. But this is what first cars are for. And you actually expect to crash and destroy your first car. I mean, when my son gets older, that's what I expect to happen to his first car. I worship that car. And for a while, I thought I was pretty cool in my 68 Volkswagen Bug. I did learn some important car lessons in that. One, if the little red generator light turns on in a Volkswagen Bug, you immediately pull over, which I did not. I drove home. Because what that means is the fan belt that drives the fan that cools the engine has come off the generator and you are overheating. Now, there's no real gauges on a Volkswagen Bug except for a fuel gauge. And I overheated it and destroyed the engine. Came up, smoke's pouring out of it, and it is destroyed. I was distraught. I couldn't afford a $500 car. So my dad's like, I'm not fixing it. You're going to fix this. You're going to pay for this. So we got, back then they had this crazy book written in the 70s. It was like Volkswagen for Dummies or something. We got into the garage and we tore it apart and I rebuilt my first engine, was my Volkswagen Bug engine. Go down to the Volkswagen shop and get the parts and put it back together. And I ended up blowing it up one more time because I was trying to be a hot rod. It was the car I first learned to do an e-brake slide in. And I tortured that poor vehicle and it worked absolutely perfectly all the way through high school until I finally got a job at a company called Air Uni and eventually became Ozone Freestyle, where I became the marketing director. And I was like, oh, I'm stepping up in the world. I can't be driving a Volkswagen Bug anymore. So I bought a 1971 BMW 2002, which was my second car. And I still think that is the perfect 3-box car. And what do you mean by 3 boxes? Like the box up front, engine, the box in the middle, people, the box in the back, trunk. It handled great. And it was one of the first cars that I thought about actually start racing. And I got bigger wheels and tires and roll bars for it. And I got to take it to the track for the first time. And I drove the heck out of it. But again, poor student, I finally went to college. I finished my job at Ozone and decided to go to school. And I took it to school and the clutch started slipping. And at that point, I was pretty mechanically handy with cars, but I just didn't have the money to do a clutch job on it and the room. And so I was like, I'm going to sell it. And that broke my heart. I still wish I had a BMW 2002. Maybe someday again in my collection, if I ever have a collection. And well, actually maybe not, because 2002s have gone through the roof. I bought that car for $2,000 and I think I sold it for $2,500 with a slipping clutch. And what I bought with that was, what I needed at college was a computer, an early Mac, and I got a Yamaha RZ 350. And this was the Kenny Roberts edition, which was yellow and black with stripes. It's a 2-stroke. And I looked ridiculous on it. I looked like a gorilla riding a tricycle because they're not very big bikes. But it made a great sound, and when you fired it up in the morning, it would blow smoke rings out of the back. And my girlfriend at the time would never let me start it up near her apartment because it would freak everybody else. Because it's like, no, 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 no. You imagine. It was such a great bike. And I was also the crew coach at the time. And I started the Chico State crew back in the day. And the guys would meet on my front lawn before we would go and row. One morning I woke up and the RZ 350 is gone. And I look around, I thought, somebody's messing with me. They'd be behind a bush, or we look around the house, it's not there. And I'm kind of distraught because that was my cool bike that I ran around town in. And my rower guys were like, well, we'll go look for it. And this is like 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, no. Let's go rowing. We'll figure it out. It'll be fine. And they're like, no, coach. No, nobody does that to coach. Can't do that to coach. And I'm like, okay, we're going to go look for it. I'm like, don't take a long time. Just, you can look for it. This is before cell phones. So I stayed at the house and I'm waiting, and I'm thinking it's gone, or somebody messed it or jumped it into a creek, or it's gone in a lake or something like that. And I get a phone call and it's my rowers and they're at the house of the guy who stole it. They saw it in somebody's side yard, maybe 5 blocks. The guy was probably drunk the night before, grabbed it and walked it over to his house and was going to do something with it. So you imagine 8 big crew dudes come through your front door at 5 a.m. and they're hacked off. I would not have wanted to be this guy. And they come in and they're like, you got coach's bike, and brought him to the phone. And he's just babbling an excuse to me. And I'm like, hey man, I'm not going to call the cops. Even that young, I knew we were idiots. It's like, people are dumb. Is the bike okay? Yeah, the bike's okay. All right, just bring it back. And the guy's like, oh, thank you, my gosh, thank you. He hangs up. They end up pushing the motorcycle back. And then one of my rowers walks up to me, and. and he hands me some cash. And I think it was like $40 or something like that. And I'm like, What's that? And he goes, for your troubles. I'm like, from you? He's like, oh, no, 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 no. They had rolled the guy for $40 and made sure that, for my troubles, that I got a few pennies in the bank. Those vehicles were just the beginning of a long line of cars I've had since then. The RZ 350 turned into a Jensen Healy, and then another Jensen Healy, and then I started restoring cars in college, and I don't know, I've probably had 100 vehicles at least since then, not counting my film cars. But it all starts somewhere, doesn't it? For all of us. And for me, in my heart, it will always be my Volkswagen Bug.
When you get a ticket, it might look something like this, but the first thing that you need to do is take a picture of that ticket and send it to 305-305. That will get the ticket clinic on your case immediately. They've got brick and mortar offices in Georgia, Florida, and California, but they can help you find a ticket no matter where you get it in the United States by helping you find a local attorney that will do everything they can to help you avoid costly fines, insurance premium increases, points on your license, risk of suspension, even jail time. They've helped me out with this ticket and many others, and a lot of my friends as well. So check them out now at the link in the description below, or again, text your ticket to 305-305 to get the ticket clinic on your case. They are the perfect partner in your fight against any speeding ticket.